My name is Amelia Tremblay, and I grew up in a remote village on the banks of the Mackenzie River in northern Canada, a place where winter lasts too long, and old stories seem more alive than they should. It all started with an innocent crossing. My brother Noah, our friend Jade, and I paddled to a forgotten island on the other side of the river. There, we saw something no one should see: a ghost canoe. In the north, time seems to move sideways. The sun appears only to remind us that it still exists, and then disappears behind the icy clouds. Here in Fort Good Hope, we learned early on that winter rules, and we obey. When it arrives, it doesn't warn us. It just closes the doors, covers the river with ice, and silences the birds. It was an October afternoon when it all began. I was with my grandmother, Madame Colette, arranging the preserves on the pantry shelf. The smell of smoked caribou is still with me, as if it had stuck to my skin that day. She told me another one of those stories that everyone in town has heard about: the spirit that appears on the Mackenzie River after the first frost. Not everything that rows the river is a person, Amelia, she said, her eyes downcast, as if speaking to her past self. If you see a canoe coming silently, without the sound of a paddle, don't look it in the eye. I pretended not to hear. My grandmother likes to scare people, as if these stories were a shield. But the truth is that they only make me more nervous. Still, that day, something in her tone stuck, as if it wasn't a legend. Later, Noah and Jade called me over. They were excited. Jade had convinced my brother to row to the old lumber island across the river. It was a kind of forgotten place, with crumbling cabins and the smell of wet wood. "It'll be all right," Jade said, already holding the paddles. "Just one adventure before the real snow falls." I should have said no. I should have remembered Grandma's warning. But the sky was calm, the water looked safe, and I didn't want to seem scared. We pushed the old canoe out onto the river, and soon we were gliding through the thin mists. The chilly breeze bit my face, and the silence was so thick that even the oars seemed to be begging the water's permission. The Mackenzie is never noisy, but today it was dead. Or maybe it was paying attention. Noah hummed softly, and Jade paddled confidently. I tried to pretend everything was fine, but I couldn't stop staring into the mist ahead. I had a feeling like something was waiting for us there. We reached the island. Everything was still. The trees, the logs, the broken windows of the abandoned buildings. It looked like no one had set foot there in years, but there were footprints. Small, fresh, very fresh. "Probably just a raccoon," Jade said. But even she didn't seem to believe what she was saying. We separated for a while. Noah went to explore an isolated cabin. Jade walked along the fallen dock, and I stood still, looking at the river. That's when I heard it. First, a sound of water subtle, like a small stone falling. Then the sound of oars, but there was no sound of impact. It was as if the river were opening up on its own. I turned around. The fog, thick as cold milk, was beginning to move away right in the center of the river. And there, a canoe. There was no one paddling, but it was moving, slowly, silently. The canoe was coming toward us. And when it got closer, I saw him. A man, or what he once was. His skin was too pale, his eyes. I don't know how to explain it. They had no shine. They had no depth. He looked at me. I swear he looked at me even without moving his head. Beside him, a caribou skin covered something that moved or breathed. Jade, Noah, I shouted, without taking my eyes off it. They came running, and saw it too. Jade turned white. Noah trembled, but said nothing. And then, out of nowhere, the fog swallowed the canoe, as if it had never been there. We ran back to where we had left ours, but the canoe was gone. There were no marks, no sound, no trail, only the river, as still as ever, and the icy wind passing by us like a whisper. I never went back to that island, and now, when the frost comes, I close the windows tight, turn off the lights, and pretend I don't hear the oars on the river. But they are there, every damn night. After that day on the island, my life changed. At first, it was just fear. Afraid to sleep, afraid of the fog, afraid of the sound of the water. I tried to forget, tried to convince myself that I was imagining it. But the problem is that, once you see it, you can't unsee it. The nights got long. I dreamed of the canoe, always it, gliding silently over the black river. The man looked at me with those empty eyes, and sometimes he spoke without opening his mouth. Other times, he just reached out his hand to me. I always woke up with my heart racing, my throat dry, and the feeling that someone was still watching me. My grades dropped. I started avoiding others. Noah got worried. Jade tried to pretend that nothing had happened, but even she changed. We weren't the same anymore. Something about it stuck with us as if the river had marked us. My grandmother noticed. And one night, after yet another nightmare, she took me to a cabin outside the village. There lived Mariora, a woman known by few, feared by others. They said she was a witch, but my grandmother only called her a healer. Mariora looked me in the eyes and said, "He chose you. But that's not a curse yet. If you don't listen, he'll scream. And the scream of the dead is what drives the living crazy." She did a cleansing with herbs, smoke, and ancient words. She used pine needles, charcoal, and Mackenzie's own water, collected before dawn. I felt something loosen inside me, as if an old knot was being undone. I cried, out of fear, out of exhaustion, out of everything. And little by little, the fog inside me began to disappear. In the months that followed, everything got better. The dreams stopped. I was able to go back to school. Jade and Noah started laughing again. It was as if winter had finally passed, not just the one outside, but the one inside. But of course, the river doesn't forget. It was a clear spring morning, when the snow was just beginning to melt, that I saw him again. I was sitting alone on the shore, looking out at the water, and there he was. But this time, it wasn't a dream. The canoe appeared out of the mist as always. But he wasn't pale, or empty. His eyes held pain, sadness. And when I got closer, he spoke. For the first time. My name was Amelia Tremblay. I died here many winters ago. I was abandoned by my group when I fell through the ice. I cried out for help, but no one came back. And ever since, I have paddled. I stood there, silent, listening. He wasn't asking for revenge. He just wanted to be heard. I closed my eyes and prayed. I prayed for him the way my grandmother taught me, with respect, with humility, with love. "You have been forgotten, but today you are remembered," I said. "May your spirit find the other shore." When I opened my eyes, the canoe was gone. The fog, no sign. The river flowed calmly, and at that moment, I felt that he was gone. Today, years later, I still walk by the river every day. I still respect its waters, its stories. I learned that not all ghosts want to scare. Some just want rest. Others, justice. But they all want to be recognized. And I learned that, sometimes, the biggest ghosts are not in the river, they are inside us. And listening, accepting and healing is what sets us free. My name is Amelia Tremblay, and I am no longer afraid of Mackenzie.